Hello.
Hello!
Thank you for checking this out. I'm a huge How I Met Your Mother fan. I have been for years. And through these years and the countless rewatches, I've actually come to the conclusion that I kind of love this finale, and it's just a little bit wonderful. I'd like to talk about that for a couple minutes, and maybe you'll find something in here that you can agree with. Now, I know that defending the How I Met Your Mother finale is about as contentious and unpopular an opinion as I could talk about, and most certainly the least important thing I can discuss right now, but here we are. It's 10 years after this show ended, and I'm still transfixed. I love it. I love its characters and its beating heart. I love the good and the bad and everything in between, including the finale. And to me, this finale, if nothing else, is genuine and alive. So call it what you will. Defeat, acceptance, Stockholm Syndrome, I don't know. But through my countless rewatches, this show has really won me over with its brilliant foreshadowing and its clear direction and intentionality that it had for this exact ending since its first episode, never wavering all the way through to the end. So I'd like to take a few minutes to defend the finale, trying to expose its flaws, but also to highlight its soul and its genius. So please give me a chance before you mail me death threats or throw up an intervention banner as I attempt to defend my favorite show of all time. Enjoy. So let's talk briefly about what these episodes are. To me, they're their own entity outside of the rest of the show. It feels almost like the show got its wrap-up at the end of Season 9, Episode 21, where we get that lovely yet conventional Sandlot-style explanation of the future lives of a lot of the characters of the show. It seems like that marks the end of the sitcom, serialized, carefree meandering of the show. We see our side characters off, and we're left with our main group, and a laser focus that's so different than the rest of the show, especially different than the rest of Season 9. Now we move much more methodically toward understanding the significance of Robin and Barney's wedding, of Ted meeting Tracy, and of the group's life from then until now. It's fast and it's messy, but my God, if it's not teeming with life and purpose. I'll talk more about the finale's vibe in a minute, but here I can simply say it's much darker and heavier than the previous episodes. It has to carry a lot more within itself than before, but I think that almost every scene and every little interaction, from the goofy high infinity to the devastating shot of Lily in the empty apartment, to Ted and Tracy meeting on the Farhampton train platform, and all the rest, has such command of the screen and our attention. So the show spends its final moments showing us what happens after the sitcom ends. It shows us the real lives of these people, how they deteriorate at times and triumph at others. The show no longer cares about the perfect ending. Ted no longer has to wrap things up nicely with a little life lesson for his kids, because he catches them up to where they are, to the present, to what they already know. He just wants them to see how he views things, as a broken, sad, hopelessly optimistic man. I have much more to say about this, but this is what the finale is to me. A jump outside of the show and into Ted and the others' real lives with glimpses across time and a memento for the future. So let me begin this analysis with what I feel are the weaknesses that this finale contains that made so many fans angry. The most egregious to me is the sucker punch whirlwind nature of these episodes. They jam so much into 40 minutes after slowing down to a water tread of a Season 9 where we spend nearly the whole season in one wedding weekend. We have flashes forward and flashes backward, and even just blatant filler episodes like Bedtime Stories or the Slapping Saga. All this leads to far too little time to flesh out or even comprehend the major events we're shown. To me, it has always felt like the writers were afraid the community would riot if they spent too long in this depressing reality, and they kind of just tossed the episodes into the lion's den and ran before the outrage can change anything. I cannot and will not excuse this clear mismanagement of time, and this stands as the show's biggest flaw. And I don't want to underestimate how significant and cancerous this decision to make only 2 rapid episodes to wrap everything up is. But outside of this decision, I genuinely only have one other problem with the entire finale. Although it is still connected with the initial issue, and it is a pretty insignificant one, but it still bugs me to this day. It's just how after we get maybe the best scene of the entire show, one that rocks and breaks any true fan, one we waited 207 episodes for, where Ted and Tracy finally meet for the first time on the train platform. The scene the whole show has been building toward. We immediately flip to a comedic, light, fundamentally tone-breaking scene where Ted's kids joke that the whole story was really about Ted being in love with Robin.
You made us sit down and listen to the story about how you met Mom, yet Mom is hardly in the story. No, this is a story about how you're totally in love with Aunt Robin.
The point of the story is that
you totally have the hots for Aunt Robin.
And, yeah, I get why this is here, and I think it even holds a valid point, but I must return again to the timing issue. Let us breathe and come to the conclusion with the kids instead of telling us what to think. I think this scene is part of what made everyone more mad than anything. It's sped through and condescending and posed way too flippantly. Honestly, I even kind of like how casually they reference their mother's death, almost to show that it's been years and they've processed it. But it hasn't been for us. We just found out. This is a fine scene, it's just poorly placed and used. That's the issue. So those are my issues with the finale. The big 2 that I'm sure you've noticed I did not mention are Barney and Robin's divorce and Tracy's death. These are typically the problems that people have with this finale, and I'm going to be frank, I actually have no problem with these whatsoever. So now I'm going to discuss these critical decisions and explain why I feel they actually enhance the finale rather than hurt it. Let's take Tracy's first. Whew, Tracy's death. This is a rough one for me. I've become so attached to these characters and their individual and interpersonal significances that I genuinely struggle to watch a single Tracy McConnell scene without breaking down, because I know how it ends. But here's my rationale. I've been asking myself if I could change the ending to keep her alive and end the story essentially in Farhampton. Would I? Not a chance. Here's why. Her death is so much a part of this story that it cannot be removed without taking so much of what this show is with it. The writers, Ted, his kids, and us rewatchers, we're all in on it. Now sure, if the entire show was rewritten and this plot point was taken out, then fine, I'd love to keep her alive, of course, but so much would change. Day-to-day stuff in a random season 4 episode would stay the same, sure, but the big stuff, the stuff we all remember, the stuff that makes us really fall in love with this show, is tied to this underlying knowledge of sadness and loss. Just look at a couple of these moments and tell me that Ted's story to his kids isn't about Tracy's life and death, and their lingering impacts on him. That's why the foreshadowing is so brilliant, and the framing device of wisdom through storytelling to a grieving man's children is so powerful.
Kids, you can't cling to the past. Because no matter how tightly you hold on, it's already gone.
Because sometimes, even if you know how something's going to end, that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the ride. You probably want to feel bad for your old man at this point in the story. Well, don't. Not every night has a happy ending. But all of it's important. All of it was leading somewhere. Because suddenly, it was 2006. And 2006 was a big one. But Marshall had come back from the dead. Because while baseball, strippers, and guns can help, the only thing that can really heal a broken heart is time. Kids, you may think your only choices are to swallow your anger or throw it in someone's face. But there's a third option. You can just let it go. And only when you do that is it really gone and you can move forward.
You will be shocked, kids, when you discover how easy it is in life to part ways with people forever. That's why, when you find someone you want to keep around, you do something about it.
So that's the upside of hurt. Sometimes it happens for a reason.
It was a twisting, turning road that led to the end of the aisle, and not everything along the way was perfect. To be honest, not everything to follow would be perfect either. But what is?
If you're looking for the word that means caring about someone beyond all rationality and wanting them to have everything they want, no matter how much it destroys you, it's love. I want those extra 45 days. With you, I want each one of them. I love you. I'm always gonna love you. Till the end of my days. And beyond.
You're Ted Mosby. You start believing again.
In what? Destiny?
Chemistry. If you have chemistry, you only need one other thing.
What's that?
Timing. But timing's a bitch.
The future is scary, but you can't just run back to the past because it's familiar. Yes, it's tempting.
But it's a mistake.
Love is totally nonsensical, but we have to keep doing it, or else we're lost, and love is dead, and humanity should just pack it in. Because love is the best thing we do.
It's gonna be okay. You're a good guy. You will get through this. I don't want you to be the guy who lives in his stories. Life only moves forward.
Is that really such a surprise? I mean, come on. Yeah, of course she showed up. What mother is going to miss her daughter's wedding?
As much as it hurts, and it hurts, this is the point of the story. Like it or not, this was not decided halfway through or thrown in on a whim. This was the story for the writers since day one. This was the story for Ted's kids, and for us by association. It took me many rewatches, but I think it finally clicked for me, and I see the story as it was meant to be seen. This critical plot point was not thrown in haphazardly, but it's instead the emotional core of the entire story. Ted and his kids already know what happens, and he's not afraid to reference this fact countless times. It's what makes rewatches to me even better than the original viewing. Episodes like Time Travelers and Vesuvius have become some of my favorite episodes in the whole show because they hold this amazing, agonizing, human, grief-stricken core that absolutely shines, and it rips you as you watch, knowing what Ted knows. So to me, having this underlying knowledge and heart keeps the show alive and growing with every rewatch. It's a real story with real pain. And as it stands, the story is completely different and frankly a little empty without this plot point. I feel her death is not the show's dark antagonist, but instead it's its center and its catalyst. Similarly, I think one of the major points this show is making is that there isn't just one. Not just one perfect match or scenario or goal or ending. Life has perfect moments, but they pass, just like the horrible ones. How many times does this show scream in our faces that there's only one, and they're perfect, and you're not whole without them? Look at the Lebenslange speech. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
There is a word in German, Lebenslanger Schicksalsschatz, and the closest translation would be lifelong treasure of destiny. And Victoria ist wunderbar, but she is not my Lebenslanger Schicksalsschatz. She is my beinahe leidenschaftliche Gegenstand.
Seriously though, Season 8, Episode 1, the writers knew the ending when they made this speech, but they made it anyway. Look at Tracy's backstory. She found the one, and she gave up when she lost him, and then she found Ted. Funny how sometimes you just find things. You can say I'm giving the show too much credit, but I wholeheartedly believe they meant to show us that ends are not the end. Yes, Tracy died, and I finally accepted that fact, just like Ted and his kids did. And with that, I'm seeing that just because something bad happens, it doesn't make the experience any less beautiful or the time any less impactful. I don't really know what I'm saying. I'll try to just put it plainly. Yes, the story is about Tracy, but it's also about Ted and the gang, and before her and after her and everything in between. It advertises itself as a destination, a resolution, but it truly is a story of a journey, and one, frankly, that doesn't have a clear end. The casual nature of the reference to Tracy's death in the final moments of the show is a testament to it only being part of the story. Significant, but not the end, because that's how trauma and grief work. They may never really leave us, but they damn well don't define us. Whew. Okay, the other main complaint is Robin and Barney's divorce. I'll try to be a little more brief on this point. So, honestly, I can totally understand the anger of fans who say that almost the entirety of season 9 is the lead up to and the climax of Barney and Robin's romance and wedding, all of which is subsequently undone in the final 2 episodes. As I said earlier, I cannot excuse the poor timeline of this final season. It is objectively bad, but that doesn't take away from the truth and spirit of this final narrative. I actually completely buy that this relationship between these two was almost doomed, considering both parties' worldviews, their wounds, and their willingness to fix and heal, or lack thereof. Relationships require work, communication, and flexibility. Character traits rarely shown by either person throughout the whole time we spend with Barney and Robin. In the beautiful, heartbreaking way the show does, it displays the realities of life under the guise of fictional romanticism. Neither person has had any sort of healthy, intimate relationship modeled for them in their childhood, so fighting, emotional distance, and eventual abandonment are almost an expectation for these two. That's how their adult lives have played out as well. No wonder Barney says successful marriage that only lasted 3 years.
This isn't a failed marriage. It's a very successful marriage that happened to only last 3 years.
Like, to them, a relationship comes with an expiration date. Not to say that it's not possible to heal your attachment style or your relationship capability. Rather, it takes that work and humility that neither of them show us. And to me, that's what doomed them. And honestly, I know I sound like the enemy when I'm saying this, but it feels almost more unrealistic to have them live a happily ever after in my mind when considering this. There's a certain broken beauty to Barney's final redemption, though, that I think is nothing short of genius. After the divorce, he becomes more hopeless than ever. We see him revert back to the only life he knew as an unattached bachelor. And this is sad, but altogether unsurprising and human. This lifestyle is his coping mechanism and his safe place when he loses everything else.
Look, I know there was a time when it seemed like I was capable of going the distance, but if it wasn't going to happen with Robin, then it's just not going to happen with anyone.
It is really hard to see him come so far only to fall back down to his floor. But then, maybe his biggest explicit fear of the entire show, having a baby, think Sane Dwayne or Not a Father's Day, materializes into an unexpected reality, and something amazing happens. It's actually fulfilling. There were certainly hints at his true desires to be a dad. Think of his excitement at falsely learning he had gotten Robin pregnant, or his enthusiasm in becoming an uncle, and his subsequent connection with James's baby. This is so perfect because it fits the problem and the narrative like a glove. It's a real relationship that Barney can grow and work on, something that doesn't end when morning comes. He has a chance to heal his inner child by creating the safety and dynamics he missed as a child without a father. Now, I know we don't get to see much, but if anything is going to be a veritable reset button, a chance for a fresh start in spite of everything, it's this new life. To me, the divorce is unsurprising, and yet it's resolution is perfect. In a similar vein, we see both Robin and Ted get a fresh start opportunity as well. There had always been something there, all the way from the pilot episode through to Robin's wedding, and beyond. And we don't get a look at it, but to me, after all these two have been through, I'm glad they're not giving up. Something I realized very recently is that it almost feels like there's actually two separate love stories in this show. Ted and Tracy, as well as Ted and Robin. I feel like this is really obvious, but I'd always discounted the Robin relationship as just another step, albeit a big one, on Ted's road to Tracy. But I don't know if that's completely true. He'd always loved Robin, and it changed when he married Tracy, but something was there under the surface that never left him. I really think the show wants us to get this too. What really tipped me off was realizing that there are two highly significant pieces of symbolism in this show. I'll give you a second to think of them. If you know anything about the show, you know that it's the yellow umbrella for Tracy and the blue French horn. And these two don't really overlap, and they don't really go away. They're literally both in the finale, and they're seen all over the place in the preceding seasons. I know this is a weird tangent, but I swear, the more I look into this show, the more brilliant it becomes in my eyes. I wanted to say just a bit about this finale's vibe and its character. It holds this very serious, hollowed out, heavy feeling. While sounding like a negative, this is absolutely a praise of the show. These episodes feel entirely different and purposeful. There is like this ineffable aura about them.
Ineffable. Good word.
That draws you in and shows you this is important. To me, in my completely biased, overly emotional opinion, the finale is chock full of personality, of bliss and bedrock with little in between. It makes up for lost time, and it moves with complete intentionality. Pay attention next time you watch through season 9 and feel the dramatic shifts in tension from the preceding episodes to this one. Trust me. These two final episodes fling us forward into the future of the lives of the group. Just like in real life, some of it is fantastic and dreamy, like Ted and Tracy happy in a relationship, having kids, or Robin having her dream job as the solo top worldwide news anchor. While some of it is also devastating, like the group falling apart with age and responsibility, or Robin and Barney's divorce leading to a total regression in Barney's person. Many may want a less is more approach to be taken here. Show us Barney and Robin's wedding, Ted and Tracy meeting, and cut. But to me, this is the right way to close the show. Sure, a happily ever after ending would have been nice and palatable. The show would have just been another open and shut Disney story, and the world would move on and forget. But in my mind, these characters are more than, well, characters. They're more than interchangeable, predictable puppets. They're real people experiencing real-life crap. That's been the show's MO since day one. What I think of when I think of them is not circumstantial sitcom drama, but I think of their holistic life challenges, like Lily's struggle between settling down and pursuing her passion for art.
Sometimes I wish I wasn't a mom. Sometimes I want to pack a bag and leave in the middle of the night and not come back.
Or Marshall's pain in losing his real best friend, his father, and spiraling in existential crisis over how to make his father proud now that it's too late.
I miss him so much.
I know.
When I was a kid, we would spend the summers in the Upper Peninsula. It would be pitch black in the middle of the woods, and I could never see anything in front of the headlights. But I always felt so safe, because my dad was driving. Now he's just gone. And it's pitch black. I can't see where I'm going. I can't see anything.
Or Barney and Robin feeling hopelessly marred and crippled by their parents and what they put in or left out of their early lives.
Why does that make you so mad? Because if you were gonna be some lame suburban dad, why couldn't you have been that for me?
Or Ted losing the light that drew so many to him, his thrashing, impatient, beautiful desire to make a lasting, completing relationship with another person. Until one day, he gets to the point where he imagines the line,
You're saying it's doomed completely? One of us is just guaranteed to get sick of the other and call it quits?
You've been dating for a long time, Ted. Has it ever gone any other way?
this is not a period ending, but an ellipses. Life continues to kick their butts long after we're involved. Of course it does. This is not a story of victory, but of gratitude. These are real people, and real life sucks. And because the writers see them the same way, we get a glimpse at what comes next. What a blessing. And not only that, but we get some of the best payoff someone could ask for. Barney and Robin's wedding is wonderful, and we get some of old Ted's most incredible thoughts and advice. But more importantly, we get to see Ted and Tracy meet. This scene is so astonishingly perfect. It's exactly what we wanted. It's not too much, and it's just as teased and advertised through the many glimpses across the show. It's such a perfect little interaction that shows immediately how similar Ted and Tracy are. They're both funny and personable, but also highly emotional, and they flow through this wild, unspoken roller coaster together. She's just plain different.
He's fallen in love so many times now.
Not like this. This is different.
Lily knows it, and Tracy and Ted both know it. They'd both just about given up, but somehow they both found each other. What a perfect moment. I'm sure I could go on for hours about my feelings about this show, but I'm afraid I'm gonna start repeating myself and that I will just jumble this events even more than it already is. So let's end things here. I know I threw out a lot of information. My thoughts become like spaghetti when I get excited, so hopefully you discovered a noodle or two that you found were tasty. Let me just try to recap everything briefly. The finale is without doubt mismanaged. It's too quick and it's jarring, but the truth is still there through the mismanagement. We get a glimpse at life beyond Ted's story, and with time, we can, like he and his kids, begin to see the good within the bad, the flowers in the concrete. It's an ending that takes time to process, but I believe that in the end, it's worthwhile to do so because it's profound, it's interpretable, it's dynamic. Heck, it taught me about grief and loss as someone who has never really experienced it like Ted has. You shouldn't like this ending the first time around, maybe not even the first several times. It's deep and it's emotional and it's hard, but if you're open, this show will teach you and it will help you. It will cry with you and rejoice with you. This finale allows us to see the show as ongoing, as alive, as we are and as life is, and that's why I love it. So that's my defense of the finale. Hopefully it makes you think. Please share this and keep an eye open for my upcoming ranking of every episode. Thank you.